I visited with an ecumenical colleague this week who is preparing to retire from a 2 decades-long ministry. For many of the past several years, she's been working with her parish and at least one other to explore the possibility of amalgamation. Both communities have uncertain futures, and still she experienced trying to bring them together to work together as something of a slog. Amalgamation might have been a good option as a path forward. Alas, the process recently well and truly fell apart. My friend had been holding on, hoping to secure a long or at least medium-term future for her community to finish up her ministry in that place. But it is not to be. She realized that it's her time to retire anyway, even without a sense of completion. Her work is done, even though it is not finished as she would like. Franz Schubert's Symphony No. 8 in B minor is commonly known as the unfinished symphony. The phrase unfinished symphony kind of bounced around in my head and heart this week. It's a phrase I've heard, but I didn't have any context for it, so I did what anyone would do and Googled to try to find out the story, knowing that these kinds of phrases often start with something specific and concrete before they become kind of more abstract concept. In this case, it's a musical composition that Schubert started in 1822, but left with only 2 movements, though he lived for another 6 years. After giving a bit more history, Wikipedia concludes, to this day, musicologists still disagree as to why Schubert failed to complete the symphony. Note the language. Schubert failed. But did he? Apparently, yes, he did fail to complete that particular symphony. But still I'm struck by the word choice. We can't know what he was thinking, what the details were of the final years of his life, what he lived and felt and experienced, and maybe even what he wanted to accomplish. And maybe the unfinishedness of Symphony No. 8 in B minor is the gift of it. Back on Wikipedia, I discovered other entries for unfinished symphony, including a 1934 film based on that symphony, a 2005 medical documentary, and one page with a very, very long list of incomplete musical compositions through the centuries. Schubert is hardly alone. Today we heard the last chapter of Deuteronomy and the end of the Torah. The 5 so-called books of Moses finish by telling us that Moses never set foot in the promised land. After a lifetime of following Yahweh's call and leading God's people out of slavery in Egypt to wander in the wilderness for decades, Moses died on Mount Nebo, overlooking the land that drove his life's work. For decades, Moses had endured the deprivation of the wilderness, wondering alongside God's people how they would find food and water. Moses mediated between often surly and impatient people and their God, Yahweh, who was also pretty regularly frustrated with the people. Moses brought Yahweh's teaching to the people to delineate for them how to build a just and faithful society. If anyone deserved to celebrate the completion of a life's work, it was Moses. But there on Mount Nebo, the Lord shows him the whole land and says, "This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there." Instead, Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab. An unfinished symphony. The organization Greater Victoria Acting Together, or GVAT, of which we are a part by virtue of our connection with the diocese, has recently held a series of important gatherings. Beginning early this year, the organization began again at the beginning of what's known as the organizing cycle. It's an established series of activities designed to strengthen its member organizations, to surface new leaders, and build power for the common good. The organization had to overcome some internal resistance to starting over with the listening campaign, and so it has been encouraging to see the renewal of it building. At a discernment assembly on Thursday night, while people in the room near the end of the night were figuring out when they would meet to work on a chosen issue, I noticed the outgoing chair of the board just sort of sitting there quietly. Having led the organization for several years, she was enjoying bearing witness to the energy and the people, knowing that her part of the work was done, for now anyway. She's one of the leaders who had worked for years to build GVAT. She is tired now and in need of a break. When she and I met earlier in the week, we talked not only about some of the next steps for the organization, but we also noted with hope and excitement the generational change that is starting as a small but growing group of 20-somethings step into leadership. Most days, the pressures of our time are overwhelming. The climate emergency, economic uncertainty, cost of living and housing crises, our broken healthcare system, and the mental health impacts of it all. Solving those pressing issues will likely remain unfinished for some time, an unfinished symphony. The leaders who are stepping aside right now and for now have not failed in the work. They are rather making room for new energy and new voices, passing the baton, so to speak, for others to continue to build power for the common good. This coming Thursday is Ascension Day, when the risen Christ ascends into the clouds, marking the first half of the next critical shift in salvation history. Today, we hear words of comfort and strength from the farewell speech of the pre-crucified Jesus to help us prepare for the risen Jesus' departure. Peace I leave with you, Jesus says. My peace I give to you. You heard me say to you, I am going away and I am coming to you. The mystery of the Trinity is such that God goes in one form and comes in another. And while we believe God's presence is always and forever, God still acknowledges the real changes in God's very self that feel like loss and call for grief. God comes in a bush that burns but is not consumed, and Moses' life changes. God speaks in a still small voice and out of the whirlwind. God is born as a baby. God is tortured and killed by the empire. God overcomes fear, suffering, and death. God is revealed in bread and wine. God acts in the world God loves through the community of God's people. God is never finished. God is transforming in community always, that we all may contribute to the unfinished symphony.